Hello, everybody. I am David Martin. I am the ATP Development Manager for EMEA at the WSET. I have been working for over a decade supporting approved program providers across Europe and the Middle East, and I work closely with the hospitality, distribution, and educational sectors in these regions. I'm sure you know that the WSET is the world's leading provider of qualifications and courses in wines, beers, spirits, and sake. And the WSET has over 55 years of experience in designing and delivering education to help both wine professionals and consumer enthusiasts to learn more about wines, spirits, sake, and beer. You can take WSET qualifications in over 70 countries through a network of more than 800 course providers. If you're interested in finding out more about embarking on a WSET journey, visit wsetglobal.com to find your nearest course provider. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and available to watch via the WSET Global Events Hub on YouTube. You can post your questions in the Q&A box, and we will try to cover as many as possible at the end of the presentation. The DO Valdeorras became a WSET Bronze partner last year, and thanks to this relationship, we are able to offer this webinar today. Thanks to our partners, we are able to develop social projects aiming to improve access to drinks education for individuals and communities facing challenges and hardship. And now let me introduce you our speaker. So today we have Jorge Vila with us. He's the founder and director of the Galicia Wine Academy in Spain. Jorge holds a degree in telecommunications engineering and has dedicated the past 15 years to wine education. He is a WSET certified educator and has held the WSET diploma since 2022. In addition, he is a Spanish wine specialist by the ITEX, a Spanish wine scholar, and a certified educator for several leading Spanish appellations, including DOCA Rioja, DO Cava, DO Jerez, and DO Jumilla. Jorge is the author of Discovering the Wines of Galicia, currently published in Spanish, but it will be available in English from next week. He's also the creator of the Galician Wine Specialist online course, and this one is available in Spanish and English. Jorge, thank you very much for being with us today. I am really looking forward to learn more about this fascinating region.
It's a great pleasure. Thanks to everybody to join today and to come and discover more about Valdeorras, a region that I think you will love most. You will love more even after this seminar. Okay, so let's start. Valdeorras, the value of diversity in a unique Spanish terroir. It's true that Valdeorras has several things that makes different the terroir and the territory that we are going to visit right now. So let's see some of them, okay? The point is just to, the first thing is to know where Valdeorras is. So most of you, I'm sure you already know that we are in Galicia. Galicia is in the northwest coast of Spain. And in this corner, we found Valdeorras. We have 5 appellations in Galicia, but another 5 PGIs, so Indicaciones Geográficas Protegidas. In this map, you can see the 5 DOs of Galicia, and in green, in light green, you can also see Valdeorras. Valdeorras is in our east part, is in our inland part of Galicia, and that makes a big importance because we will have here, for example, less influence from the Atlantic Ocean, as we will see further on. Maybe the first thing we have to look at is the mountain ranges. The mountain ranges in Galicia are located, most of them, in the east part of Galicia. And as you can see here, there are two main important ranges that affects the Valdeorras climate and conditions. The one in the northern part that is called Courel, the Serra do Courel here, and the Serra do Eixe, a little bit southern, in the southern part. Okay, they are both the main mountain ranges that we will have around Valdeorras. And these mountain ranges also isolate a little bit Valdeorras from the rest of Galicia. So you will see that the climate here is much more Mediterranean that we will find in some other areas in Galicia. Okay. Apart from these two main ranges that are around Valdeorras, just let me show you this other range that are the Dorsal Central Galega. These three mountains, these three ranges that are the Serra do Suído, Serra do Testeiro, and Serra do Faro, these three ranges also have an influence because they are, let's say, our bosgos in a way, no, making a similarity with the mountains in Alsace. As you can see, they are doing a kind of frontier, a kind of wall that makes the inland part of Galicia much drier and hotter than the other part that are in front of the ocean, as for example, Rías Baixas, mainly Rías Baixas. So these mountain ranges configurates a little bit more or less the climate of Valdeorras. But also very important, two rivers. The main river in Valdeorras is the Sil River. The Sil River flows from east to west, and it conforms the main valleys in Valdeorras. But also a tributary of the Sil River that is called Vivei River, and even a tributary of Vivei that is called Xares. These three rivers are the main important ones that we have to take care to see how they work, how they modify the territory and the landscape of Valdeorras. And going deeper into the terroir characteristics of Valdeorras, the first thing, maybe the most important thing, is talking about the climate. Galicia is well known because of the Atlantic climate, but you must know that not all our areas, our wine production areas, have the same Atlantic influence. Of course, Rías Baixas has a very specific Atlantic climate, but these areas inland Galicia, as for example, all the area around Ourense and the Miño and River Sil confluation, this area has a much more drier and hotter climate. We say that it's a kind of Mediterranean climate. And maybe most of those that you are in Spain, or sometimes you see the news about Spain, you can see how the highest temperatures during summer in Spain are mostly in the southern part of Spain. But some of these villages, some of these areas also achieve some of the highest temperatures in Spain during summer. And that's the reason why, for example, the province of Ourense, which is this part in inland Galicia, has been during our history the main area for wine production, as our climate in this area are more focused on a Mediterranean type than on an Atlantic style. Apart from the Mediterranean influence that you can see here in purple, you see that also we have a continental influence. We have seen before the mountain ranges, and these mountain ranges, the altitudes, make also a continental influence. It means that the diurnal range of temperatures are much higher here than, for example, in the coastal area of Galicia. So a mix of some Atlantic influence, but more Mediterranean climate, and also a continental part made by the mountain ranges. And what about the soils? In this map of soils of Galicia, we can see how mainly Galicia presents two soils. Granite in the coastal area is the more usual soil that we can find. You can see there in red, but in blue, we will see the slate soil. That is the main soil in the eastern part, in the inland part of Galicia. So Valdeorras is also very well known to be, because it's an important exporter of slate for construction and everything. But not every soil in Valdeorras will be slate. We also have the granite mainly in the Bay area, and also some small plots of schist. So slate and granite will be two main soils that we will have to take care of. Okay, let's go to the historical part. Now we have the context of the territory, and we need to know just a little things about the history of Valdeorras, and it's an important history in the wine production. This history starts with Romans in the 1st century. Romans here have an important establishment, because they have been here mining for gold along the Sil River. And we know that Romans, during some years, they can take wine from some other areas around, but after some years that we are in a place in Valdeorras, in this case, they will start producing wine. So we know that we have wine in Valdeorras since the 1st century. Very important also the Middle Ages, the medieval area. We have a written document from the year 940 that shows that the wine production was already important in Valdeorras in this area. And of course, the monasteries, since the 12th century, some of them, for example, Chaguaza Monastery, I think I have a photo of Chaguaza. This is the photo of Chaguaza Monastery from 12th century, has also an influence, maybe not that much, or we will not find here so many monasteries as, for example, in the neighbor Ribeira Sacra, but also the monasteries and the monks have an important influence in the development of the Valdeorras viticulture. And something that makes Valdeorras different are also the covas. Covas are caves in Galician, and covas were built, most of them, in the 18th century, and they are underground cellars that they were built to preserve the wine, also to produce the wine in some cases. And nowadays you can visit these covas. There are several fairs, several festivals in different villages where you can just go and visit the covas and maybe even try some of the wines that the neighbors are producing there. And in the 19th century, we have to talk about the phylloxera crisis. The phylloxera plague devastated most of the local vineyards, and also had an influence in the varietals that we have nowadays, because you have to understand how people there in this area were focused on the production of quantity, not so much in quality, because the production of wine were very important for them, just to the family consumption. So after phylloxera, we started to plant some varietals that are more resistant to illnesses, that are more productive, and that's something that has changed during the last century, but in that area it had a big influence. Valdeorras, la denominación de origen Valdeorras, had official recognition in 1945. It's one of the oldest in Spain also, and its regulatory council is from 1957. But something that had really very important point in Valdeorras history is the revival plan. The revival plan was launched in 1974, and this guy that was Horacio Fernández Presa, I also have a photo with him. I was also much younger than today, but I had the honor of meeting Horacio, and he was explaining me the importance of this plan in that point, because in 1974, Godello was almost extinct. So there was no so many options in Valdeorras for the viticulture to offer to the world great wines. But the revival plan was the point when Godello started to recover, and we can say that most of the Godello that we can find all over the world come from this project and this work that they did. And of course, after the revival plan, we have the recognition, the global recognition of Godello as one of the high-class varieties, and Valdeorras as some of the areas in Spain that are producing the better quality wines to offer the world. So during the 21st century, the recovery has been very, very important. Okay, so now we already know a little bit about the history of Valdeorras, and I want to show you something about the territory. To talk about the territory, the first point is two photos that I love to show to my students. The first one is this from the Sil Valley. The Sil Valley is a more open valley, okay? So we can find here more flatter areas to produce wines. We can find also slopes, but not so steep as, for example, we will find in the other valleys, as for example, these ones I will show you. This is a photo from the Vibey Valley. As you can see, both of them are located in Valdeorras, but these two valleys are offering completely different conditions for wine production. Vibey Valley, we will have a higher altitude, we will have also more steep slopes. So the Godello we will get from here, Godello and some other varieties, red varieties that we will see further on. But the Godello from this area is a bit different from that other area of the Sil Valley. We will see them together. Some points about the territory. We are located in the east of the Ourense province, as we have already talked about, and we have the Sil River that comes from east to west, and we have vineyards in both banks, but maybe the left bank is more steep than the right one. Altitudes in this area will come from 400 meters up to 700 meters. And some areas will be flatter, and some others we will have terraces and with very important, very steep slopes, as for example, Vibey and the tributary shares. The vineyard area is not that much, is 1,270 hectares. You also have the numbers in acres if you prefer it. And is increasing a little bit in the last years. Not so much. I mean, for example, last year I was talking yesterday with the Consejo, with Jorge Mazaira is the main technician in the Consejo for these things, and he told me that maybe he had 40 more hectares this year from the last one, but it's increasing above all because of the good market we have for the Godello wines, of course. We also are seeing that there is a kind of reconversion of some vineyards that are producing reds, for example, Mencias, are now being reconverted to Godello. It's normal because, as you already know, it's been much more easy selling white wines and, of course, Godello wines than those red wines. Okay, and they have 42 wineries and around 1,000 viticultures that are working in the vineyards, and most of them they own a little quantity of a little space of vineyards. So vineyards here are not very big, they are quite small, as it happens in mostly Galicia. You can see here the territory of Valdeorras, the DO Valdeorras, and you see in the middle the Sil River, how is it crossing from east to west, and also the main villages we have in Valdeorras. Maybe the most important one in population is Obarco de Valdeorras, but also Arrua, and others also important that are, for example, Vilamartín or Carballeda, and of course these two, Larouco and Obolo, that, as you can see, are closer to the Vivei River. This area of Obolo and Larouco, it's being very important in to produce high quality wines. Also, the topography of Valdeorras, this map shows very easily how we will find more flatter areas close to the Sil River. Around this area of Sil River is where we will find the main production of wines in Valdeorras. And we can also see how the mountains in this area, in the southern part, are much higher in altitude. And of course, this altitude will have an influence in the styles of wine. We also see the Serra d'Oeste. Serra d'Oeste, we have here some of the highest altitudes in Galicia, above 2,000 meters. And for the moment, maybe with the global warmth, we have to rethink about it. But for the moment, we are not planting vineyards in this area. What about the climate? We have already talked a little bit about this. Climate in Valdeorras, it's mainly Mediterranean. It's Mediterranean because the summers here are very hot and very dry. Yesterday I was talking also with a producer from Valdeorras, and he told me, and he's not so young, so he told me that it was the hottest summer he could remember this last summer. So it's very easy to find here temperatures above 35 or even 40 Celsius degrees during summer. And during winter, it's much colder. As you can see also this continentality between the big range between the temperatures in summer and temperatures in winter is also important. The annual temperature, the average is around 11 Celsius degrees, and the rainfall here it's much lower than that we have in the coastal areas of Galicia. For example, we can get more than 1,600, even more in some other parts of Rías Baixas, but here is more around 850, and during summer is almost nothing. So mostly of the rainfall will come during the winter and the autumn and the spring. The sunlight hours are quite high, 2,200, so more than enough for get a perfect ripeness in our vineyards. Some areas, as for example those in Vivei, also have a windy condition. So this windy condition has an influence in the ripeness of the vineyards, making that these wines from Vivei are going to be a little bit more fresher in general and not so ripen from those from the Sil River in general. About the soils, as we saw in the previous maps, we have mainly slate in most of the area of the wine production in Valdeorras. This slate we usually say that gives to the wine more warmth and maybe mineral notes in some of the wines. But also we will find granite from the area in Vivei, and this granite gives wines more varietal and fresher in general. And alluvial soils, of course, close to the river, mainly to the Sil River, we will find this richer and warmer soils that gives a higher ripeness to the wines, and also more productive wines. There is also a small area of limestone, but it is the only area of limestone we have in the whole Galicia, but it's not very important right now in terms of production. So just something that is a curiosity. And what about the varieties? We are producing here 80% white and 20% red. It's something that it has not been like that in the past. It was more balanced. Maybe I remember some years ago doing some presentation like this, that we were showing maybe 65% of whites and 35% of reds or something like that. But it's increasing each year the percentage of white. It's normal because you can imagine that with the success of Godello in the market, there are lots of producers that are focused in this varietal in particular, and in white wines in general. The main white variety is, of course, Godello, but as you can see, there are allowed Loureira, Treixadura, Dona Branca, Alvarinho, Torrontés, and Lado. They are the main varietals for whites in Galicia, and we can see most of them in the other DOs also, but with different percentage of production. And you see also Palomino in the smaller letters, because this varietal, as also Gran Negro, Garnacha Tintorera, or Moraton in reds, they are allowed, but they are not the preferred varieties. So there were plantations of these varietals, and I should say that some of them that are very old vines can be interesting, but they are not the main varietals from the area. They are not native from Valdeorras, so the DO is not promoting to plant more of these varietals. The ones that are being promoted are, of course, the native ones. In the red varietals, we will find Mencia. Mencia is the main one in production. We will see later, but in the last vintage was only around 11%. In the past, it was usual that we can find at 20%, for example, of the production in Mencia. It's true that this vintage is a little bit different because of the draw and also the fires. We have this summer several forest fires that had a big impact in the production, above all on the red ones. But apart from Mencia, we will find here also Tempranillo. Tempranillo is called Araúja, very small percentage of production. Brancellao is called Alvarello. This varietal has been very interesting in new wines that they are production. I think in the future we will find more Brancellaos in the market from Valdeorras that will have a lot of success also. And they are also allowed Merenzaos, Oson, Caíños, Padeiro, and Ferrón, but they have smaller quantities of those. The other red that maybe we have to look at, it's Garnacha Tintorera. Garnacha Tintorera have been planted here after the phylloxera, as we have already told. But the point here is that there are still very old Garnachas Tintoreras in Valdeorras, and some of the wines that they are producing from these very old vines of Garnacha Tintorera are quite interesting. Maybe it's true in a depth and strong style, so you have to look for this style. Maybe it's not the most common style nowadays in the market, but with a lot of complexity, interesting wines. Let's talk a little bit more about Godello. Godello, of course, needs just some minutes just for it. Godello has been recovered since the 80s, the 70s, 80s of the past century, and is nowadays almost the 80% of the whole production in Valdeorras. Last figures from the Godello production were 74% in 2000. 24, but this year it has achieved almost the 80% of the production. These are figures of just yesterday, so they are very, very exact in the figures of today. Godello has this character of the early ripening. We say that from the main white varieties in Galicia, Godello is the one that we have to harvest before Albarino and before Treixadura, mostly. And Godello, for example, some of the producers of Godello this year has started before the end of August, the harvest. Some others are still harvesting it, so until yesterday. So there are differences between the different areas of production, of course. Godello is also always looking for dry and poor soils. Godello is not well adapted to soils with a lot of moisture, with high humidity, and that's the reason maybe why in some areas in Rías Baixas it's not so common that we find Godello. We can find Godello in the inland part of Rías Baixas, for example, but not in those wet soils in our coastal regions. And maybe the main characteristics of Godello, we can say that in color is a bit pale lemon. Sorry, you can see it here, but I'm going to take some of this wine, of this Godello, just to feel involved in it. So the color usually is pale lemon, and the aromas are pear, sometimes stone fruit. If we have a little bit more ripening, we will get more stone fruits. If not, the pear notes are more usual. Sometimes even some pear, but okay, this kind of green fruits in general. Okay, but the notes, the aromas that make Godello very distinctive are maybe these herbal notes. The fennel in particular is very usual that we can find these herbal notes in our glass, and also sometimes a little bit of not high acidity, but very good acidity, very fresh wine, but we will say that more medium plus acidity than high acidity, as for example is easy to find in Albarinos. Very good ripening. We have high alcohol easily in this area in Valdeorras, but it's usual that we can find 14 degrees, 13.5 degrees in most of the Godellos, and medium plus body. That's an important point of Godello. It has more body, more mouthfeel than other varietals, as for example Albarino. It makes it very gastronomic in the way that you can pair Godello with a bigger range of courses, and this maybe is part of the success of the Godello. So very good balance. Of course, it depends on where it's grown, but the balance in Godello is very interesting. What about the viticulture? Okay, we have here the open valleys, as we have already seen, and in the open valleys, we will see how it's easier to do maybe the different work we have to do in the vineyard. Some of them can be helped with some small trucks or something like that, but mostly they are done. All the works are done by hand. As you can see in this photo, this is from the last harvest, from this harvest, and the harvest is made completely manual. Also, steep slopes and the Vivet area in this part is very difficult to work with small tractors even, so we have to work very, very hard with the manual work. Okay. All vines are bush trained, are bush trained. So the very old vines, it's easy to find them in some areas, and in this traditional way of train them, that is the bush. But the modern plantations, the plantations from 80s till now, they are planted in the trellis system. Okay, so it's the more usual way that we will find the vineyards in Valdeorras, in the trellis system, in the Spaldera system. This system also helps a lot in the windy areas. For example, in the upper part of the Obolo or Vivei vineyards, where the wind is harder, the Spaldera also helps us to control the impact of the wind. Something interesting about the conditions, the regulations of Valdeorras is this label that they have that is called the Viñedo de Producción Controlada, so control production vineyard, that it tries to push the producers to produce lower yields in the vineyards, so looking for higher qualities, more concentration, more intensity. So you can see there the main conditions they have to achieve to get this label. It's not so well known, even in Galicia, it's not so well known, this label, but I think it's quite interesting, the idea of distinguish the wines that they are working in this way to those that maybe they are not so focused in the quality. And what about the vinification? How are the styles of wines that we are producing here? Okay, mostly we are producing young styles, young wines, whites and also reds. Mostly are in this young style. So the vinification, it's very technological vinification. They are made in stainless steel with temperature control. Of course, they are trying to preserve the wine from any kind of oxidation, just to show the characteristics and the intensity of the fruits. But it's true that also we have some other wines that they are a minority in quantity, but they are also using oak in some cases. It's a limited use, both for reds and whites, but we can find big barrels, foudres, and this kind of mostly old barriques that they are not trying to let's say, give the impression of wood to the wine, but let the wine evolve and become more complex. Lees aging is very usual. We have told just some minutes before that Godello has this mouthfeel, this powerful in our mouth, and the lees aging also gives a little bit more of that to the Godello, so it makes it improve this quality of Godello to refer to the mouthfeel and the sensations of texture in the mouth. Of course, also that added complex of notes of lees or pastry or biscuits, this kind of notes. But in most of the wines, they are not looking for these notes to feel these notes very, very impressed. So most to work with the mouthfeel in general. And sparkling are also allowed, are also permitted here in Valdeorras. The sparkling has to be made in with the traditional method. It was more usual in the past than nowadays. In the past, we could find very easily different brands of sparkling made by Godello in Valdeorras. But nowadays, the success, once again, of the Godello in this young style makes more difficult to have grapes to produce these sparkling wines. So there are still some, but they are not so common nowadays. I personally think that Godello fits very well with the sparkling styles, because Godello has a little difference between Godello and Alvarinho, for example. Alvarinho is more flowery, more fruity. Maybe the Godello is a little bit more not so fruity, but being not so fruity allows the production of sparkling to show the notes of pastry, of the the lees aging more easily than, for example, those from Albarino. So I think it can be a good thing for the future. And let's talk about Tostado. Tostado is also a different, a very interesting and important wine in Galicia in general. Maybe the production is not so high, not so important, it's true. It's more important the production of Tostado in Ribeiro, for example, but here is also allowed. What Tostado means? Tostado is a kind of naturally sweet wine made with pacification, with dryness of the grapes, okay? So the drying has to be indoor. That's very easy to understand because our climate does not allow to make a drying outdoors. At least for the moment, maybe with the global warmth, everything will change, but our autumns are quite humid, so we will have illnesses in our grapes if we wait too long in the vineyard. So the main naturally sweet wines in Galicia are made with the indoor drying. The indoor drying in Valdeorras has to be at least during 30 days. It has changed last year because it was 90 days until last year. And of course, with a very limited yield and very gentle pressing, we are getting here, the maximum is a 40%, but the usual numbers are a 10 or a 15% of the original grape weight. And of course, a slow fermentation, an agent, the slow fermentation, there is no other way to do that because the concentration of sugar is so high that the lees are suffering with the alcoholic fermentation. And they usually stop fermentation naturally in the past. It was the only way of doing a sweet wine in the past with the means we had maybe 200 or 300 years ago. That's the point where tostados started to appear in our regions. No? After the fermentation, they have a slow aging also during 1 year or 1.5 years or 2 years, and after that they are bottled, and in bottle they can last for 10-20 more years. So it's very interesting to taste these wines after more than a decade because they are so complex and interesting that I think it's worth to taste them. So the result, it would be a very sweet wine, but very well balanced with a very good acidity, very nice texture, aromas of candies, of honey, toasted nuts, very, very complex wines. Let's talk a little bit about the different styles of Godellos we can find in the market. There is not only a style of Godello we can find from Valdeorras in the market. I usually say that there are two main groups we can find. We can find very fruity Godellos, very attractive and very easy to drink, very well done, with notes of stone fruits, maybe a little bit more ripened than some others. Those Godellos mainly come from the flatter areas, from the Seal River, close to the sea areas, alluvial soils, higher temperatures in climate. This kind of Godellos are very nice and very well known in the market. But there are also another group, a group that comes from the higher altitudes, from those steep slopes we have already seen in some photos. This style of Godello is looking for a lighter styling in mouth, but more complex, more complexity, more vibrant in the mouth also. Mostly the PR is very present, more than maybe the stone fruits notes, more herbal, more mineral. So the higher quality of Godellos, it could be fine in this second group. Okay? The lees aging is very useful for both of them. and we can find this aging to add complexity and texture in any kind or the other, okay? And what about red wines? About red wines, the main variety we have seen before, that is the Mencia, is still more than the 10% of the production. Mainly Mencia will have here a warm and ripe note, but those Mencias from the higher altitudes also have a different freshness. They are lighter in style. The granite soil also has an influence in this upper areas of the Obolo or Larocco. So we can also find these two styles of Mencia in the market. The old Garnacha Tintorera vines, we have already talked about that also. They are very interesting in the depth and character they have, but they are quite ripe, they are quite ripe, they are quite strong, and maybe a kind of style that is not so fashionable nowadays, but very interesting. And Brancellao. Brancellao is maybe some of the most interesting wines that they are being producing right now in red style in Valdeorras. They are very elegant with delicate tannins, very good acidity, freshness. The aromas are very intense. Brancellao usually has these herbal notes in the mouth, in the nose. So something that is going to be very well known in the market, I'm sure, in some years. Some things about the regulations, just we are finishing. So rosés are allowed from 2024. The regulations of the DO Valdeorras allow to blend white and red grapes for the production of rosés. There had been some rosés in the past in the area that were out of the DO, but nowadays we already have some of them with the DO label, with the inside the DO appellation, the Valdeorras appellation. And about the sparkling, we have already seen that they have to be made with the traditional method. Whites have to be at least 85% of Godello, which is not a problem nowadays. And they are also allowed the rosé and the red sparklings since 2024. For the moment, you can find some rosé in the past, but as we have already seen, they are not so producing nowadays. And about the sweets, Tostado, it has to be made from Godello if it's white, or from the red varieties, the preferred red varieties if it's red. And something about the labels also, Valdeorras Godello has to be 100% Godello. Valdeorras Mencia has to be 85% at least Mencia. And these Castes Nobres, let me just stop here for a minute, because Castes Nobres is something that you can find not only in Valdeorras, but in most of the denominaciones de origen in Galicia. And it means that they are made by native grapes. We are very focused in promoting the native grapes, and we are producing fantastic wines from native grape varieties. And this is a way of recognize the work we are doing with those. Also, Barrica is also a label you can use. Barrels have to be maximum 600 liters. This is an Spanish regulation. It's something that happens to the whole Spain, and aging must be specified in the label. It's also allowed to use Crianza, Reserva, and Gran Reserva, but as most of you already know, they are not used too much nowadays. They have never been used too much in Valdeorras, but even in some other parts of Spain where they were very usual, nowadays they are not so usual. Okay. And what about the market and the production and sales? We have here the numbers of 24 and 25 since just yesterday, okay? So the production, you can see that from 24 to 25, it seems that it has decreased. It has decreased, obviously, but something that you have to take care here is the first thing, the forest fires have an influence during this summer, but also the drought. We have had one of the driest summers we remember. So the draw has also a big influence in the yields we have achieved for this vintage, for this harvest. Okay, the 74% of the production were Godello in 2024, but it's almost 80% in 2025. So as you can also see, the production of Godello is increasing, and it's easy that in some years we will see how the very, very important part of the production of Valdeorras will be Godello, because of the success it has in the market. Okay, 18% of the production were Mencía in 2024, but just 11% in 2025. And Garnacha Tintorera has more or less the same. Okay, there is no more plantations of Garnacha Tintorera, but they are those from the past that we have seen as very old vines. Okay, and the sales, notable growth in the recent years, of course. The demand of Godello in the market has been increased a lot during the last years. Something interesting that maybe you want to know is this year it has been the first year that the kilogram of grapes of Godello has been higher than the price of the kilogram of Albarino grapes. So it's something that it usually doesn't happen in Galicia, but this year has changed a little bit. And the exports are quite low. It has more close to the 6-7% than to the 10%. And the main markets are the USA, UK, Netherlands, Germany, Norway, etc. Our last one. So we have here the main information about Valdeorras. If something you have to remember is this. So just around 1,300 hectares, 42 wineries in production. And the altitudes are from 400 till 700 meters in the upper parts of Vivey area. The soils are slate, granite, and alluvial mostly from the areas close to the river, mainly the Sil River. The climate is mainly Mediterranean, but with Atlantic influence and also some continental influences in the areas that are up in the hills. And then the average temperatures during the year are 11 Celsius degrees, which with a very important difference between the summer and the winter. And the rainfall can get up to 1,000 millimeters, but the last years are more closer to 850, and mostly are during the winter and the spring. And the mix of the production, 80% is white and 20% is red nowadays. I'm sorry. So I hope it has been not very hard. And I hope, of course, if you have any question, just David, let me know. And we have still 5 minutes to answer some of them.
Thank you very much, Jorge. That was a very interesting, fascinating region for us to learn more about it. So yeah, there are a few questions that people have been put in the Q&A. So I will try to go through some of them or most of them if I have the time. So Hugo is asking, does the meseta or the plateau have any influence in the climate as well?
Okay, the meseta, the Spanish meseta, it starts when Galicia ends. Okay, so the Spanish meseta has not an important influence in our wines and in our climates. The only point is that the macizo galaico leonés is, let's say, the way that we are going from the flatter areas of Galicia up to the meseta. Okay, so we have this influence of these macizos of these mountain ranges, but not the meseta itself.
Thank you. And I think another question from Hugo. I think he's talking about Godello here. Does it bud early as well? And any influence from the continentality and cooler climate conditions on this. So yeah, basically that's the Godello but early.
Godello, David, you should spell it. You should say it well because you are Spanish. It's Godello.
I know Godello. Sorry.
We have to learn how to say Godello. Godello
Indeed.
It also can have an early budding, not that much, but also quite early, but not let's say more medium than early. Okay. And what about the other question was?
Yeah, is there any influence from the continentality and cooler climate conditions on this?
Yeah, the influence on the continentalities in the upper part of the Valdeorras territory. So as we have already seen in these Larocco and Obolo areas, which has higher altitudes, they present more continentality, more a wider range of temperatures from winter to summer, but also a diurnal range, a higher diurnal range. So it, of course, has an influence in the way that the Godello ripens in this area, making it more maybe a higher preservation of acidity, for example.
Excellent, thank you. So now we have a question from Aurelio Fernandez. He's asking for the viñedo de producción controlada. Are all the reds allowed?
Yeah, I think only the preferred reds, but I would have to check it as Aurelio lives here in Galicia. I will send him the information, but I think all the preferred red varieties.
Excellent, thank you. He's got another question for you, and this is about: is there a minimum lease aging for sparklings?
I think they have to be at least 9 months, as usual in Spain, but something that is better to double check.
Excellent, thank you. And I think I'm going to go for the last question because we don't have any more time. Let me see, I haven't read the questions. Yeah. So Crystal is asking for the rosé wines, when blending of white and black grape, when blending of white and black grapes is allowed. Let me see. So is that blending grapes only before fermentation starts or until it finishes?
Before fermentation and during fermentation, it's allowed the blending of grapes, white and reds, during the vinification, let's say. During the vinification,
okay. Fantastic. So I think let me see if I can get just one more question maybe before we close. Amy is asking, when is the best time to visit the covas?
During summer, it's easier to find the festivals, the fairs, where you can find these covas open. But if you come in any moment of the year, I'm sure some of the producers will open their covas for you, for sure. I can maybe just show you. I didn't show maybe properly, but here you can see a cova. This is the photo of one of the cova. This is one of the producers of wine. This is from Alain de Val, producer, and it's easy that they can open one or two of them for you. So you can come to Valdeorras whenever you want.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry I cannot answer any more questions. We are out of time now. So again, thank you, Jorge, for the presentation. I think it was very, very interesting. I hope people enjoyed it. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I think you saw already the feedback poll, so hopefully you have filled it. Yeah, just to say that also, I want to thank you to Dio Valdeorras, our bronze partner, for helping us with this webinar. And well, you know that the recording of the session will be available to watch on the WSET Events Hub on YouTube, where you can catch up on all our previous events. And to find out more and to sign up for any of our qualifications, you can visit our Where to Study page at wsetglobal.com. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.